Number 8. The real purpose of Stonehenge. Picture this. You're an ancient druid with a beard made of moss, vibing in the English countryside, and your buddies drag you out of your yurt at sunrise to stare at a bunch of rocks. Again. And nobody can tell you why. For literal centuries, historians have played the academic version of Clue. Was it aliens with a compass? A prehistoric calendar for cavemen who really liked solstices? A massive graveyard for people who died of boredom? Turns out, Stonehenge was kind of a concert hall. No, seriously. Recent research combining archaeology with acoustic science, yes, that's a real job, found that the stones amplify and contain sound in weirdly sophisticated ways. Think less spiritual stargazing and more Neolithic Coachella. The circular layout actually bounces sound around so you can hear a performance clearly even if you're standing in the back with your mammoth jerky and your eyeshadow made of crushed beetles. Add to that the discovery of animal bones, food remnants, and what scientists politely refer to as evidence of feasting, and the whole place starts looking more like an ancient party spot than a solemn mystic altar. One expert even called it an exclusive VIP event space for elite tribal families. That's right, Stonehenge was the original members-only club, minus the dress code and overpriced drinks. So the next time you see someone reverently photographing the stones, just remember, you're looking at the prehistoric equivalent of a Burning Man stage built entirely out of limestone. Number 7. The Curse of King Tut. Debunked by Mold. Ah yes, the Curse of the Pharaohs, a delightful blend of history, horror, and probably just allergies. When Howard Carter and his crew cracked open King Tut's tomb in 1922, people freaked out. Why? Because a bunch of them died. And the newspapers, being the responsible institutions they are, basically screamed, "Ancient curse confirmed." Spoiler, there was no curse, unless you count science, which apparently ruins everything fun. Fast forward nearly a century and scientists with microscopes and no chill analyzed the tomb and found loads of toxic mold, specifically Aspergillus flavus, which sounds like a sneeze and acts like one too. This little fungal menace thrives in sealed environments and can cause respiratory failure, especially in dusty tombs full of old linen, decayed food offerings, and, dead pharaohs. Turns out, some of the mysterious deaths were just people inhaling thousands of years worth of spore-ridden ancient air like it was the Egyptian version of a vape hit. Others died years later of entirely unrelated causes, like car accidents or regular heart failure, stuff curses don't usually get credit for unless you're writing tabloid headlines in the 1930s. And the kicker? Carter, the guy who actually opened the tomb, lived for another 17 years. So much for the wrath of the mummy. Basically, it wasn't a death spell, it was bad HVAC. Number 6. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Hollywood lied to you. Again. The image of sweaty, malnourished slaves dragging limestone blocks across the desert under a whips and sandstorm regime. Pure dramatic fantasy. The real builders of the Egyptian pyramids? Union labor. Sort of. Archaeologists discovered entire workers' villages near the pyramids, complete with beer jugs, bread ovens, and surprisingly decent housing. The workers even had healthcare. Literal ancient skeletons show signs of healed injuries, meaning someone took care of them instead of just tossing them into the Nile with a whoops. These weren't slaves chained to a rock. These were well-fed dudes with protein-rich diets and government-issued dental care. Okay, maybe not dental plans, but they did get medical treatment for stuff like broken bones. And their burial sites? Right next to the pyramids. Not the kind of VIP real estate you give to people you treated like garbage. Historians now think the pyramid builders were seasonal laborers, basically farmers, working construction jobs during the Nile flood season when their fields were underwater. So yes, the pyramids were still built by an army of sweaty humans but not by slaves. More like ancient temps with decent benefits and a killer commute. So next time someone says aliens built the pyramids, just remember, nope. It was Dave from 2490 BCE and his crew, pounding back barley beer and hauling stones for the pharaoh's retirement plan. Number 5. The Nazca lines were just maps, sort of. Imagine being in a desert, drawing a 300-foot-long hummingbird with a stick for some reason, and knowing that literally no one will be able to appreciate your art unless they invent airplanes in the next 1,500 years. That's the Nazca lines, massive geoglyphs etched into the Peruvian earth by ancient people who apparently had a flair for extremely impractical landscaping. People have guessed everything from alien landing zones to ancient crop circle fan art, but researchers recently pulled a CSI Desert Edition and found a far less glamorous, but way more useful explanation. The lines were giant irrigation and pilgrimage maps. Using satellite imagery, soil analysis, and more computing power than your average TikTok filter, archaeologists connected the geoglyphs to underground water sources, specifically Pukios, ancient aqueducts that still function today. Some lines actually point directly to these water sources, as if to say, "Hey, thirsty? Follow the monkey." Others, shaped like animals or spirals, were likely ceremonial paths. Pilgrims would walk these lines as part of religious rituals, probably while praying to water deities, which honestly makes more sense than aliens dropping by to doodle spiders on the dirt. And here's the fun part, the Nazca people couldn't even see the full shapes. That's right, they designed these enormous masterpieces using only basic tools and a profound sense of, we don't need to see it to know it slaps. So yes, they were incredible artists, but also brilliant engineers who figured out how to turn an endless desert into a functional GPS system, centuries before Google Maps decided your shortest route involves a toll road and 3 existential crises. Number 4. The Mayan calendar did not predict the end of the world. Remember 2012? When everyone stocked up on canned beans and some dude in Indiana built a bunker out of old school buses because the Mayan calendar was supposedly counting down to human extinction? Yeah, about that. Here's what actually happened. The Mayans had multiple calendars, and one of them, the long count, just happened to end a cycle in 2012. That's it. It was basically the cosmic version of a calendar flipping from December 31st to January 1st. Except instead of fireworks and regretful texts, people screamed about apocalypses and made disaster movies with suspiciously good CGI. Experts, the ones who read actual glyphs instead of Reddit, explained that the Mayans never predicted destruction. The 2012 date marked the end of a Baktun, a 394-year block of time, and the beginning of a new one. Like, Happy New Era, not Run for Your Life. Also, let's take a moment to appreciate that these people were tracking cosmic movements with math so accurate it puts your smartphone's calendar app to shame, and yet, we used their calculations to justify panic buying toilet paper a full 8 years before COVID. So no, the Mayans didn't predict the end of the world. They predicted the end of one time cycle and the start of another, like ancient astrologers rolling over the universe's Google Calendar. The real mystery is how a basic math function turned into a global freakout. Number 3, the Oracle of Delphi was high, literally. You travel across ancient Greece, hoping to get life advice from a divine mouthpiece. You climb Mount Parnassus, stand in line, burn some goat bits, and finally ask the oracle, "Should I go to war?" And she, swaying, eyes half closed, mutters something like, "Victory is yours, if the moon agrees with the goat's shadow." Cool, cool, cool. Turns out, she was baked. Modern researchers found that the oracle's chamber was built right over a fault line that released ethylene gas, a mildly narcotic hydrocarbon that smells sweet and makes your brain go wee. People who inhale it report feeling euphoric, dissociated, and, you guessed it, prophetic. Ancient texts even describe the Oracle of Delphi, the Pythia, as entering a trance, convulsing, and speaking in riddles while sitting over a chasm. Science caught up thousands of years later and said, yep, that's what gas poisoning looks like. In short, the most famous psychic in history wasn't channeling gods, she was huffing prehistoric fumes in a poorly ventilated basement. But don't knock her hustle. She influenced kings, declared wars, and got away with speaking nonsense for centuries. That's legendary girl boss energy and a textbook case of recreational prophecy. Number 2, the Roman concrete mystery, solved by cracks. Ah, Roman concrete, the OG building material that refuses to die. Seriously, this stuff has been sitting in ocean water for 2,000 years and still looks like it could support a Starbucks. Meanwhile, your modern sidewalk gets a crack and immediately starts planning its funeral. For years, scientists have tried to figure out how ancient Romans made concrete that heals itself, like a mythological building material that regenerates when damaged. And now, mystery solved. And yes, it involves cracks. Tiny, magical, self-fixing cracks. See, Roman concrete wasn't just a mix of gravel and whatever was lying around. It contained volcanic ash, lime, and crushed rock. But here's the twist. Recent studies found little white chunks in the concrete called lime clasts, which were originally thought to be just impurities. But plot twist, they're not junk, they're superheroes. When a crack forms in the concrete, water seeps in and reacts with these lime clasts. That triggers a chemical reaction where new calcium deposits fill the crack, like a microscopic construction crew showing up with no union fees and 0 days off. In other words, the Romans accidentally invented chemically reactive band-aids for buildings, and the reason it worked so well? They didn't overmix the concrete. Yep, their lazy technique actually preserved these healing particles. Sometimes being bad at stirring literally builds civilizations. So while your garage floor is quietly disintegrating into sadness, Roman harbors are out here shrugging off waves like ancient flexing grandpas. Number 1, the Library of Alexandria didn't burn all at once. Let's just rip the bandage off this one. The Library of Alexandria didn't dramatically go up in flames in a single tragic bonfire of human knowledge. No violins played, no sobbing scholars clutched scrolls as the flames reached the poetry section. That was kinda Hollywood. The real story is more of a slow-motion disaster, like death by 1,000 bureaucratic budget cuts and bad luck. First off, the Library of Alexandria wasn't just one building, it was part of a sprawling scholarly complex, with satellite locations and backup scrolls. Think ancient Harvard, minus the hoodies. Over time, it got hit with several unfortunate events. Julius Caesar accidentally set part of it on fire during a naval battle. Oops. Later rulers neglected it, religious tensions led to further losses, and then eventually people just stopped maintaining it. It wasn't a single fire, it was death by history. Scrolls were stolen, misplaced, or used for much less dignified purposes. And as the Roman Empire shuffled its way into decline, fewer people cared about dusty Greek philosophy or Babylonian astronomy. Modern scholars agree that a lot of Alexandria's texts didn't burn, they were lost because people stopped copying them.